If aliens landed on planet Earth tomorrow, what do you think they would see? The grandeur of our diverse landscapes? The intricate dance of life in every corner? Or would they grab us by the collar and shake us, screaming in our faces, asking us why poor countries are poor and why rich countries are rich? Why do so many feast whilst others starve? Are the poor being punished for terrible, heinous crimes they committed? And we would stammer, caught off guard, and answer, no, it's just bad luck. Pathetic. So, before we are confronted by little green men, in this video I will talk to you about how bloody complicated this question is. Why are poor countries poor and rich countries rich? So I welcome you to join us in this endless rabbit hole of information as we venture forth into this bloody complex issue, as we seek to understand the forces that shape the wealth of nations. Let's start with colonialism. Oh God, he's starting with this. Okay then, let's hear it. For over 500 years, European powers established colonies all over the world. These colonies were exploited for their resources, which were used to fuel the colonizers' economies back home. So basically, those civilizations with the advanced technologies of the time, things like weapons and ships, totally exploited their position of power to steal from those that could not defend themselves to fuel their own interests. So, the invaders got richer and the colonized got poorer, and nobody was telling them not to. The colonization of the DRC by Belgium had a massively devastating impact on the country. The European invaders exploited the country's natural resources, particularly rubber, for their own economic gain. The social and economic structures of the society were disrupted, and the effects of this exploitation are still felt in the DRC today. On the other hand, the colonization of the DRC was highly profitable for Belgium. The wealth derived from the exploitation of the DRC's resources fueled economic growth and prosperity in Belgium. The exploitation of resources and forced labor in colonized countries led to significant wealth accumulation in the colonizing nations, contributing to their economic prosperity that is still experienced today. Conversely, the colonized countries were often left with depleted resources, disrupted social structures, and long-lasting economic challenges. However, what if colonization never happened? Without colonization, it's possible that countries would have developed along different trajectories, shaped primarily by their local resources, cultures, and innovations. However, economic disparities would probably still exist in a world without colonization, driven by factors such as geographical advantages, technological advancements, and societal structures. So, although colonization certainly had a significant impact on the modern prosperity of many countries, it is not the only factor that has determined the fate of the international landscape. Obviously, wars and conflicts have a profound impact on the economies of countries. So, countries that have experienced frequent or prolonged conflicts often face challenges in achieving economic growth, as it will often take many decades to claw back all that is lost in war. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, triggered by Russia's invasion, has had a significant impact on Ukraine's economy, and indeed the international economy too. The war has slowed economic growth, increased inflation, and disrupted normal economic activities. The economic prospects of Ukraine now heavily depend on the duration of the war and the volume of external assistance. Even if the conflict ended today, it would likely take Ukraine decades to recover from the devastating impacts. However, war alone cannot be blamed for a country's economic status. Take, for example, Zambia, a country that has never been involved in any war, where its people are truly proud of Zambia's peaceful reputation, but is still considered one of the poorest countries in the world. Next then, natural resources. Countries rich in natural resources such as oil, minerals, or fertile land often have an economic advantage. Saudi Arabia's vast oil reserves have played a crucial role in its economic prosperity. However, an abundance of natural resources does not guarantee wealth. There is a term known as the resource curse, where countries with abundant resources fail to achieve economic growth due to factors such as corruption, conflict, and shoddy governments. Nigeria is often cited as a prime example of the resource curse. Despite being rich in oil, Nigeria has struggled to translate this natural wealth into broad-based economic prosperity. The country's oil sector accounts for about 9% of its GDP, but it comprises nearly all of its export earnings and more than half of government revenue. However, instead of leading to economic development, the abundance of oil has often led to economic and social challenges. The oil industry in Nigeria has been plagued by corruption, with revenues from oil often siphoned off for personal gain. Also, The struggle for control over oil resources has led to conflict and instability in some regions of the country, which further hampers the country's ability to take full advantage of its natural resources. Despite the wealth generated by oil, Nigeria has one of the highest rates of poverty in the world. This example illustrates how an abundance of natural resources, when not managed effectively, can lead to this resource curse rather than economic prosperity. Next, we have climate. Countries with temperate climates often have advantages in agriculture and living conditions, which can contribute to economic prosperity. However, countries with harsh climates, such as extreme heat or cold, may face challenges in agriculture and infrastructure development. For instance, countries like Greece, Italy, Spain, and Cyprus are known for their pleasant year-round weather, with abundant sunshine, mild temperatures, and comfortable humidity levels. These conditions are ideal for agriculture, particularly for growing a variety of crops, which can contribute to economic prosperity. However, again, it ain't that simple, my friend. Afghanistan is a country that, despite having a favourable climate for agriculture and being rich in natural resources like lithium, copper, and iron ore, is still considered one of the poorest countries in the world. So, how about trade routes then? The wheelers and dealers of the world. It might sound obvious, but countries that are close to major markets or along trade routes will have economic advantages. Singapore is a prime example of a country that has greatly benefited from its strategic location. Situated at the crossroads of major maritime trade routes, Singapore has developed into a global hub for trade, finance, and transportation. On the other hand, countries that are isolated or landlocked may face challenges in accessing global markets, which can hinder economic development. For instance, Bhutan, a landlocked country in the Himalayas, has faced significant challenges due to its remote location and difficult terrain. Despite its rich cultural heritage and natural beauty, Bhutan's economic development has been slow, partly due to its geographical isolation. Now let's delve into the role of government and political stability in shaping a country's economic status. Yes, it will come to no surprise to you that how your government acts has a direct impact on how rich or poor you are. The government plays a crucial role in managing the economy, implementing policies, and providing public services. Economic policies implemented by the government, such as fiscal policy, monetary policy, and trade policy, can significantly influence a country's economic growth and stability. For instance, China's economic reforms in the late 20th century, which included opening up to foreign trade and investment, led to rapid economic growth and lifted millions out of poverty. And China's economic policies continue to see astronomical economic growth, even threatening the US as the global economic superpower. Next then, we have corruption, the dodgy gazebos of the world, the ones slipping a backhander from the government coffers. Corruption is a huge issue as it slows down economic development by creating inefficiencies and inequalities. In many poorer countries, lots of people seek to get into politics just because of the personal wealth that comes with being corrupt. But that money, that is all so often siphoned off into personal bank accounts, belongs to the people. And as long as these corrupt individuals are allowed to profit from being in politics, that money will be spent on yachts and mansions rather than schools and hospitals. One way to identify corruption in a country is to check how rich the politicians are. Do you know of any politicians that are outrageously rich? Lastly, infrastructure development is a key role of the government that can impact a country's economic status. Good infrastructure, such as roads, ports, and the internet, can help with trade and other economic activities. For instance, South Korea's investment in infrastructure and technology has been a major factor in its transformation from a war-torn country to one of the world's largest economies. Now, let's look at the economic factors that can influence a country's wealth. Countries with a diverse range of industries, such as manufacturing, services, and agriculture, often have more stable and resilient economies. For instance, Germany's strong manufacturing sector has been a key driver of its economic prosperity. And on the flip side, those countries that rely solely on basic industries to keep them afloat are often the ones struggling. But how on earth can a country so reliant on something like raw materials ever dream of clawing their way into more complex and advanced industries? And even if they did, where would the rich countries get their raw materials from? And of course, education is a vital factor. A bunch of clever sods in the workplace is more productive and better able to contribute to economic growth. Countries like Finland, which invest heavily in education, often see the benefits in their economic performance. In actual fact, almost all rich countries invest heavily in education. But is that because they have the money to? Or is investing in education a way to get rich? Now let's explore the societal factors that can influence a country's wealth. Firstly, population growth. Rapid population growth can strain a country's resources and infrastructure, potentially hindering economic development. For instance, India, despite its economic growth, faces challenges due to its large and rapidly growing population. Next then, health. Of course, a healthy population is a productive population. Countries with strong healthcare systems, like Sweden, often have stronger economies as their citizens are healthier and more productive. But again, what comes first? Should a poor country prioritize a healthy population? Would that even work? Or does a healthy population come naturally to a country that has the money to support it? So, as I said at the start of the video, we can't blame colonialism as the only reason why countries are poor. It just doesn't stand. But what we can say is, it almost certainly did not help. And the rich countries should do much more to help poorer countries out of poverty. However, you can lead a horse to water, my friends. Countries must also help themselves, which many do not. So then what do you think? Would aliens be satisfied with that as an answer? Or would they command us to rebalance our species using the intelligence we have been blessed with? Have you learnt anything today? Or was this just another boring video trying to teach you stuff you already know? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.